Hello there, Year 13. This is another exciting screencast, this time looking at Unit 4, Section A, focusing on Question 1A and Question 1B, the 4 and 6 mark response. Now, the reason why I've put these two into one screencast is because they are very similar questions, and there was only one real difference between them. Firstly, we're going to look at Question 1A. Question 1A always asks you to do 2 rehearsal strategies, and there's 4 marks available for this question. And the assessment criteria asks you to make sure that you've understood the rehearsal process, that you support that understanding with clear and valid examples, and that your ideas are practical and confident. This last one really will come from the fact that you've done those practical sessions exploring Roy's-Check, so that you can write about them with confidence. Now, the important factor about Question 1A is that the exam will always give you something specific to write about, a specific moment in the play. It could be a line, it could be a stage direction, but they will tell you what it is that you need to explore. That makes preparing for it quite tricky, because you really can't go through the entire script with a rehearsal strategy for every single line, so you need to be prepared to be flexible and to be creative with your rehearsal strategies. The best structure for that question is quite simple. It's 2 paragraphs, 2 P paragraphs, the point and the evidence. So the point is saying what rehearsal strategy you'd use, and the evidence is detailing how you'd use that rehearsal strategy in that scene, and the explanation is saying what you hope your actors would get from this activity. Now, roughly how that 4-mark question breaks down is that you've got 1 mark there for the point and evidence, and you've got 1 mark there for the explanation, and same again, your 1 mark there and 1 mark there. So it isn't good enough to simply write down what rehearsal strategies you'd use and how. You've got to explain what you'd want your actors to get from the activity to get full marks. Now, really, it's only a 4-mark question, so really we should be focusing on getting full marks for this. And in the exam, you've got roughly 7 minutes to answer this question. Moving on to Question 1B. This is a slightly different question. You've got 3 rehearsal strategies this time, and it's worth 6 marks. And the assessment criteria is much the same as Question 1A, except that you've got the addition here of these 2, that the rehearsal strategies must match the demands of the extract, and that it must cover both sides of the situation. And I'll explain that in a moment. What makes Question 1B different from Question 1A is that Question 1B asks you to focus on a generic thing. So it might be a particular scene, or a particular dialogue between 2 characters, or might be just 2 particular characters to explore. So you've got a wider scope with which to write about. So firstly, you've got to make sure that the rehearsal strategies match the demands of the extract, that you're not just using a set of rehearsal strategies, that you actually match them appropriately to the context. And that secondly, and this is about that final bit of the assessment criteria, that if you're looking at a duologue, for instance, that you look at both one character and the other, so you aren't just being one-sided. The structure for that question is very similar to Question 1A, except that you've got a 3rd paragraph, and same again, you've got 1 mark there and 1 mark there, and so forth, so that gives you 6 marks. And a suggested structure for that question would be to start with a larger, more open rehearsal strategy, perhaps one that helps you understand the overview of the scene or the character's motivations, and then throughout that answer then you progress onto something which is very specific at the very end. So you think of a funnel, you think of that wider perspective at the beginning, learning about the whole scene, then developing on from that with another rehearsal strategy that improves and develops on what you've learned from the first one, and then finishing with a rehearsal strategy that looks at something very specific, perhaps the most important line or moment of action within that scene. So I'm going to go through an example. I'm just going to write 1 paragraph, because essentially the way you write all the paragraphs are the same. And this paragraph is particular for question 1A, or the 4-mark question, and it's outlined for your performers 2 ways in which they might approach the stage instruction. Andres is cleaning his boots and singing. Royschek is sitting down. Now the context for this scene is scene 11. Don't forget, when you go into the exam, they will give you an extract booklet, and in that booklet will be the specific extract that they are referring to in the question. Your first job, when you get that booklet, is to find that extract in the text that you bring into the exam, because obviously that is the one with all your notes in it, and that is the one you need to refer to. So, thinking about this question, got me thinking about the relationship between Andres and Royschek and how we might communicate that. And so I thought about the areas that we need to research, and I thought about, well, Royschek needs Andres as a friend to help him through the situation, and whether Andres is trying to help Royschek from thinking about Marie. So again, I'm looking at 2 sides of the coin here, the situation. So the first one, I'd improvise the events immediately before this moment, and I'd want my actor to think about how much Royschek has already told Andres, and how this is affecting his physical movements and posture at this stage, this moment of stage instruction. And there I'm really focusing on Royschek. And I know I got that sentence wrong, and I hope you will forgive me for it. My second paragraph in answering this question is going to focus on Andres. And I'm going to do some thought tracking, and I'm going to hope that from doing that thought tracking, the actors will learn a little bit more about Andres' motivation for his cleaning his boots and singing, and how that is carried in his movements and voice. I'm just going to write 1 paragraph using this structure. So I'm going to focus on this paragraph, which is focusing on Royschek, and I'm going to start with my point, which is nice and succinct, and just simply talks about the rehearsal strategy that I would use, and the focus for that rehearsal strategy. So I'm going to use improvisation, and the focus of that is how much Royschek relies on his friend Andres. So it going to signpost the examiner to what it is that I'm going to be writing about. And remember, really, in exams, that's what we really want to do. Is we really want to say, hey examiner, I know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to add to that by describing what that rehearsal strategy is going to do. So to do this, I'm going to ask my actors to improvise the sequence of events that led up immediately to this stage instruction. Always using the word I. Yeah. So it's all about you telling your actors what they should do. So in that sense, I'm going to ask them to explore how the conversation has gone so far, and asking them to decide on whether Royschek has not mentioned anything about Marie, but is finding the right moment, or whether Royschek has not mentioned or thought about Marie yet, or whether he's not stopped talking about Marie. So they're going to improvise 3 different scenarios. And that's not really that much different to the kind of activities that we've done in our exploration of Royschek. So therefore you can be able to write some of those down in your answers. And then I'm going to finish that with, from this, I hope my actors would understand how to approach the stage instruction. So quite, clearly, first of all, signposting to the examiner that this sentence here is going to link back to the point. And then I got my explanation. So it may be that Royschek can't sit still and unable to make eye contact with Andres, but fidgets because he is fretting about Marie. It could be that Royschek is making direct eye contact with Andres, as he has just told him to get over Marie and change the topic by starting a song and returning to cleaning his boots. So simply, you don't have a huge amount of time in this to write these answers. You've got 7 minutes to write 2 of these paragraphs, and that's not very long. So really we just need to be quite focused. So I've just chosen eye contact to talk about eye contact, and simply talking about 1 bit of movement, about him fidgeting. There is not enough time to write any more than that. But that clearly indicates to the examiner that you've thought about what you would like your actors to think about and to learn from the process. Okay, so that's quite simple. What is not simple is that you've got 7 minutes for question 1A and 11 minutes for question 1B. And you take any more time on those two questions and you start taking time away from the big essay questions which are later on in the exam. So have a practice with some of those questions. You've got the book with the assessment criteria in it so that you can mark your answers, and we'll do some of those mock exams in lessons. Alright, good luck.